The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers, and I work at BAMSI. And this week we have a real treat. For the second time on this podcast, the Mayor of Brockton, Robert Sullivan, is going to come in and chat with us, which I think is timely because at the moment Brockton is in the news a lot. And I don't know if Brockton always gets a fair shake from the news outlets in Boston. Admittedly, there is a fair amount of violence in this city. This is an interesting city. It's one of the most interesting cities in New England. It is a gateway city. It is where many new Americans come and settle because they can afford housing, although that's becoming a bit of an issue. And I don't know if we talk about the good things. We do talk about homelessness a lot, and we've been talking recently about some of the difficulties with our healthcare system, with the news of late that Stewart healthcare system is in trouble. And so I want to have a conversation with the mayor about what are the good things that are going on in this city? What are some of the developments that are going on? How are we spending some of that ARPA money that came in, that American Rescue Plan Act money and other money, the CARES Act? How is that getting into our communities? And what good is that doing? And how are the people of Brockton seeing that? And what are we doing in terms of development? And of course, addressing the housing issue, which is, or should I say the homeless issue, which is a real problem at the moment in this city. And we can't dodge that one. But I'd like to talk to the mayor about what our public health stance about that. What is our strategy? And that's not a strategy that the city of Brockton can take on its own. It is a strategy that we as human beings have to take on. And so we'll be back in a couple of minutes with the Mayor of Brockton. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at BAMSI, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at BAMSI because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
And welcome back, everybody, to Humanity First. And as promised in the first part of the show, we now have Mayor Robert Sullivan with us for the second time on this show. So thank you so much for joining us.
I want to thank you, Peter, for having me on. It was really fun, and it was informative the first time we met. So I'm really glad you welcomed me back for a second time.
Well, it's always good to chat. And I just want to give you some props as well, because we were both a couple of weeks ago at the Martin Luther King breakfast in Mansfield, which I thought was a fabulous event.
Great venue too, wasn't it?
Really great. I didn't know that hotel at all. I'd certainly recommend that to anybody. Your words, I think, just really spoke to some of the challenges of people of color over the years, and really connected with the message of Dr. Martin Luther King. So I thank you for doing that.
No, thank you, Peter. Thank you for always being supportive of all groups in the City of Champions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's great. It was a really wonderful event. But I thought today we could talk about Brockton.
Sure.
Oddly enough.
Sure. Love to.
Something I think you might know something about, being a denizen of the city and grown up there, you've been the mayor of Brockton for 4 years now, is it?
So I became mayor January 6th of 2020. We're 2-year mayors, and I'm on my third term. I just got sworn in on New Year's Day.
That's right.
And again, I'm excited to continue the work to better the city of Brockton.
One of my favorite cities. I think we've talked about this before. 3 different times in my career in social work, I've worked in Brockton and loved every minute of it. It's funny because it's a little bit like my hometown in England, Hull, which is actually a fishing city, but it's a gritty city that is working class, that is multicultural, and that really speaks to the importance of towns like Brockton in New England, especially, a gateway town for
That's right.
New immigrants, somewhere where people where it is at least still affordable. I'm a bit worried about that, but in comparison to many other places in New England. One of the things I think about a lot is Brockton doesn't always get a great rap from the media outlets in Boston. You put the TV on at night and you hear about violence and guns and things like that. There's so much more going on in this city at the moment. Just wanted to catch up on some of the good things, some of the economic development stuff that's going on in the city at the moment.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for realizing that. I mean, we're a city, right? We're the only city in Plymouth County, 106,000 residents according to the last federal census. And like any city, we have struggles, right? And we are an unbelievable city of diversity. We're welcoming, we're inclusive. It's always been a city of immigrants. As I shared with you before, my own grandparents from Ireland came to work in the shoe factories. We have the largest Cape Verdean population in the United States of America here in the city of Brockton. And the good things that are going on are really multifaceted. From an economic standpoint, we are doing development. We are harnessing the fact that geographically we're located close to Boston, close to Providence, Rhode Island. We have 3 commuter stops in the city of Brockton, so it's transit-oriented development. We are also working with developers, and I just had a developers dialogue just this week. We had 80 different developers come to talk to us, and there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, right? And so there's historic tax credits, and there's the HDIP, and the ties, and the TIFs, and really, as mayor, my goal number one is to provide the amenities that the residents, the taxpayers, the constituents, the people that I work for are looking for. It's about making sure that we provide the services to our senior citizens, veterans, our new residents, long-term businesses, attracting new businesses. When you talk about Brockton High, and I'm a proud graduate of Brockton High School back in 1988, my wife graduated in 89. It's the largest public high school east of the Mississippi. When I was there, it was about 5,000 students, about 3,800 now. Yeah. But people don't know, last year, 2 of the graduates went to Stanford and 3 went to Ivy Leagues. And I mean, that's, the next generation. And a lot went into the workforce, a lot to serve our nation. But also, we have professional baseball coming to Brockton this spring. Yeah. The Brockton Rocks are not going anywhere. They're going to stay here. That's the Collegiates League. But then the Frontier League is professional baseball. And we have the New England Knockouts coming to Campanelli Stadium. And, the ARPA money. We keep hearing about the American Rescue money, right? The federal money. As mayor, we received a tranche of $34 million, and then Plymouth County has $17 million for the city of Brockton. And, some mayors decided to spend it on, hiring people. My view is I want it to be long legacy projects. So a 5,000 square foot addition to the senior center downtown for our Council on Aging, a massive renovation to the War Memorial for our veterans. City Hall is being renovated, $10 million project, hasn't been touched probably since it was built in the late 1800s. And it's really, I'm a little biased, but it's the most beautiful building, most beautiful City Hall, the artwork, the architecture. And then I decided to give $2 million to 43 different organizations, nonprofits, about average of $50,000 per nonprofit to help Brocktonians. And working to make sure that the pool on the east side of Brockton is going to be reimagined and repurposed. And we will have a brand new pool on the east side at the Cosgrove Pool, named after the first Brocktonian to die in World War II. And, $3 million is ARPA money. And then another $3 million, I went down to Washington and advocated with wonderful Congressman Steve Lynch and U.S. Senator Markey and U.S. Senator Warren. And so under the last omnibus bill, President Biden, another $3 million coming for the pool, and making sure that the 7 wards in the city of Brockton have repurposed and refreshed playgrounds for our kids. And so there's a lot going on in the city of Brockton. We're seeing an uptick in businesses coming here, relocating here. I welcome it, as someone that grew up in the city of Brockton, and, my dad was a teacher at Brockton High. My mom was a nurse in the city of Brockton. And, understanding that we have an opportunity to really reimagine the city of Brockton. We have a new slogan, where better begins. And that really stands for something. And, the fact that we have Massasoit, and we have BAMSI, and we have, the VA hospital and Brockton Hospital, which will be back online in June. And we have Good Sam. There's a lot going on. Neighborhood Health Center downtown. So, I'm the biggest cheerleader for the city of Brockton. And so, we have to tell our own story. And the story starts with, understanding that those that may have a preconceived notion of what Brockton, Massachusetts, I welcome them to come and walk and talk with me. And I think they'll definitely see a different Brockton, a more beneficial Brockton. And that's what my role as mayor is.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is walk through the streets, right? I mean, you've got the Brockton Beer Works down
That's
on
right.
Main Street at the moment, which is wonderful. And you can feel a vibe of regeneration down there. I also see a lot of renovation of buildings going
That's
on
right.
at the moment. Housing obviously is a big issue in the city. Housing is an issue everywhere.
Yes, it is.
And I think last time we were talking, I was saying that back in, I think, February of 2020, the average house in Brockton was around about 230,000. Now it's about 340,000.
That's
So,
right.
All boats are rising here, but who are we leaving, behind on the tide? And, there is definitely a homeless issue in Boston, in the southeast and in the northeast. And, I was thinking about this the other day because I'd been over at Teen Challenge for a meeting. And I came back, and I think it was the coldest night of the year. It was about a couple of Tuesdays ago. And I came under the bridge there, and there were probably 20, 30 people there. I know we are doing everything that we can for those folks. And obviously our COPE program does a lot of work on harm reduction. You have always been a champion of that. Not everybody has. There are some notions about that. And about Narcan, which we're obviously distributing far and wide. We're still working on that issue, and there's lots of things to do. But I know that some of the businesses, I do not envy your position, to be honest with you, because you have so many groups that are interested in what's going on. We're interested in making good decisions for people who are homeless and helping them with many of those people, if not all of them, are involved with mental illness and with substance use disorder. But I know that you've been sort of bending over backwards to try and accommodate. Let's talk about even going to the bathroom, right? That was an issue, I think, with some leaders in the city. And what have you been doing about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is what I say, Peter. I'm the mayor of everybody in Brockton, those that live in a house that are fortunate to have a roof over their heads, and those that are facing homelessness. And I mean that. And so to provide wraparound services, to provide common decency to those on the streets. Jasmine Bradshaw is my social services director. She's out every single day. Just last night was the point of time count, where you go out nationwide and count the homeless in the city of Brockton. I couldn't be there this year because I was at a school committee meeting, but we have bathrooms at City Hall. We have bathrooms at the Thomas Kennedy Main Library downtown. We have porta potties up at DW Fields Park, never locked. We have some encampments up there. And so, I understand it's a slippery slope. Some people really want us to clean up downtown. And aesthetically, I want to do that, right? I want to make sure it's a quality of life issue. I want to make sure that the trash is picked up. I don't want to see needles in the streets, but I also know that people are hurting. Addiction is real. Mental behavioral health is off the charts because of COVID. That's a fact. And so, to provide services, I'm working diligently. The COPE program, I want to thank you. The COPE program, it saves lives, and it's really, in my humble opinion, a godsend. And we have to continue to really work together, right? We have to come up with an approach that's going to help people, get people off the streets, give them a purpose, give them the opportunity to turn their lives around, and also medical services that they need. So, Father Bill's Mainspring has been great to work with, right? They're going to be relocating to Manley Street. It's going to be a campus setting. They've done a lot at the Roadway Inn. They acquired that during the height of COVID. That's really an example that should be utilized nationwide. So, from my perspective, I'm trying to balance, like you said, and listen, to be an effective leader, you have to be a good listener, and I'm doing listening tours and walking tours, and I don't have all the answers, and I'm never going to say I do, but I also know that we have to work together to solve issues and come up with policies, regulations, but it's also a humanitarian approach. We're all human beings, and we all hurt, and we laugh, and we cry, and we love, and we need to come up with some mechanisms that are going to help people.
Yeah. I mean, it is about collaboration. And I often think about this because there are a few families in America who have not struggled with the issue of addiction, whether it be alcohol, whether it be other substances. And in some ways, there's a great fear about that, right? We know many of us had, an uncle or a dad who struggled with alcohol after the Second World War in my generation's point, and lose their job and would sort of still go down to the bottom of the yard and dig up a bottle of vodka. That's real addiction, right? And I think I think we're frightened of that, and we want to distance ourselves in some ways to what a homeless person on the street looks like. Those people still had the same dreams and aspirations as everybody else. Nobody at 6 thinks, I want to be, in a ditch with a needle in my arm at 25. These are human beings, and I respect your humanity for that.
Thank you.
And I respect what we're doing and if we don't do it together with compassion, then we're not going to succeed. No. And I love the idea that you feel as if you're the mayor of everybody, because there's a great deal of inequity in our society. The rich are getting richer, and very few people are getting very rich. And there's a lot of people who are really struggling out there, and they struggle in lots of different ways.
That's right.
I appreciate that. Health-wise, if I can just touch on that for a second, we've heard some rather disturbing stories over the past 3 years in the Southeast. If you look at the flooding that happened at Norwood Hospital, if you look at the fire that happened, which is nearly a year ago, isn't it?
This month.
Absolutely.
It's a year ago.
This month,
yes.
The Brockton Hospital has been closed, not completely closed, but closed in the main building. And then Stewart Healthcare has been all over the news this week. There are a lot of, I think, Brocktonians and people are in the environments that are really worried about that. Do you have any updates on what's going on with Stewart?
I do. So, I actually have been fortunate enough to have, since COVID, regular conversations with all the CEOs at the hospitals. Bob Haffey at Brockton Hospital. Before that, it was Kim Holland. Matt Hesketh at Good Sam, Sue Joss and Maria Celli at Neighborhood Health Center, the VA hospital. A lot of people forget we have the VA, which is helping our vets on Belmont Street. And so I read all the reports about Stewart. And so last week I participated in a Zoom with the state delegation that represents Brockton, some other state reps and state senators, and some corporate folks from Stewart. And, I asked some questions. And what I was told is that the portfolio itself, Stewart, a large portion of it is hemorrhaging money. They're in the red. City of Brockton is fortunate because Good Sam is in the black. They're still making money. So I've been told as mayor, and again, I have a vested interest, not just in Good Sam, but in healthcare because it's located in Brockton, but it helps the region. I've been told that Good Sam is not going to close. And then I got that reiterated to me by Matt Hesketh. It's not going to close, which is great news. And then on the flip side, Bob Haffey and Dr. David Drinkwater, the medical president, has told me that in June, Brockton Hospital will be back full operation. So that's reassuring, very reassuring. And as I said at the height of the beginning of the pandemic, before we get to the height, I said, well, let's plan for the worst, hope for the best, and probably get somewhere in the middle. So I was really gloom and doom going into conversations. But after I walked away, I said, let's do a roundtable with all health providers in the city of Brockton, meaning the hospitals, including South Shore down in Weymouth, because they're seeing a huge uptick in census numbers because of the closure of Brockton Hospital. And then we met this Tuesday in my office. Matt Hesketh got on, Bob Haffey and his team, Sue Joss, Maria Celli, Alan Smith, and his general counsel, Joe Driscoll from South Shore. And then I had Brian Ardelli, our fire chief, who works with EMS every single day. And again, it's not about competition. It's about collaboration, cooperation. And so again, I was told Good Sam's not closing. Great. Makes me feel good, right? Brockton Hospital is opening in June. Their walk-in clinics is still thriving on Liberty Street and on the main campus and Center Street. And then Neighborhood Health Center, again, is seeing a huge uptick. Weymouth, South Shore is being inundated. The beds are really overflowing. And so we need to come up with a strategy. So when Brockton opens in June, which is not too far away, but it's still 5 months away from now, are we going to have the staff? Is the staff going to be ready to hit the ground running? And that's what we're working on right now. So that's kind of where we are right now, healthcare in Brockton and beyond. Yeah, well, that's really good news because I think we don't want any more bad news on the health front. No.
And, when I go back to that, just sort of wrapping up, I think as we talk about, you're the mayor of Brockton and, I happen to be working in a community mental health center. I think one of the things that we really need to think about is a public health strategy for our region. And that really takes into account what we can do for people who are unhoused at the moment and what we can do for people who are struggling with addiction. And there's no simple answer to this. You can build shelters, but you have to have safe shelters. And there are people who are still using who don't want to come into a dry shelter. And it's a question of, really thinking about a strategy that is long-term recovery for folks. And if this was easy, I think we'd have sorted it out many years ago, right? And this is the human condition. And this is correct, Peter. And Brockton is a city that has many faces. It's a city that is that is probably I would say the most interesting city in Massachusetts in terms of its people, in terms of its culture, in terms of you mentioned the distance between Providence and Brockton, and I've always been struck by that it's ideally placed for for where we're going, as you say. So thank you so much for coming on. It's always good to have an update, and I'm really glad I work in this city.
Well, Peter, first of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership. You have a phenomenal staff and team, employees, people that care. They're making a difference in Brockton and beyond. And, it's an honor and privilege to continue to partner with you. And again, I was just reelected and I have 2 more years going on, and we'll see what happens as we move forward. But, we have a lot of work to do together. We'll roll up the sleeves and keep the eyes on the prize and do some good things together. So thank you again.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Bye, everybody.